So what brings us here today? Lots of questions. So as a multi-location business, the ones we've worked with, we kind of boiled up a bunch of the questions that were often asked by our clients, which are here. So this is our agenda for the day and what we'll be covering. So why should you do paid search and social? When should you do it? How to allocate budget? How do you know if your efforts are working or not working? How to make your campaigns more personalized to your customer? Should you have a landing page? Is your site just fine as is? And also, what are your competitors doing?
So now we're just going to launch right into these questions. So the first question is, why should I invest in paid search and social if I have a single or multi-location local business? So this question can appeal to a lot of different people. So maybe you're already investing. Here's a little validation. Maybe you're investing in one but not the other. Here are some things to consider. Or maybe you're new to this and you just want to do a little research. So just to start it off, so why should I consider paid search if I have a local business? So this chart on the left is from Google Trends. This is a tool that we like to use a lot just to get a pulse on trends in the market, on Google, just general demand. So this is charting the term near me over the last handful of years. And so you'll see starting around 2013, that's just been rising. Something pretty interesting and timely is that big dip on the right, that was when COVID hit. So near me searches phased out, now they're back. So this is a trend we are expecting will continue as the years go on. COVID is a big, asterisk there, but as you can see, it's already sort of bounced back in the last couple months. But more than that, so that's the trend. More than that, a couple stats that I think put more emphasis on that. So near me or close by searches grew by more than 900% from 2016 to 2018, and they're still growing. And 46% of all Google searches are looking for local information. So nearly half. And then 90% of people say that they're likely to click on the first set of results on the search engine results page. So pretty compelling stats for if you're a local business, your customers are seeking information on Google. So the next slide is just a little more context to back up what I've already been saying. So what this is a screenshot from mobile, and I'm at my house. I search mattress store near me, and what comes up in the very first position there is a Google ad. And right below that that's what we call the local pack. That's a local organic search placement. You don't pay for it, you optimize for it. But what's interesting about that is, and you can see this just in the screenshot, the blue dot is about where I am, and all the red stores around it, those are proximity based. So in this example, this Mattress Firm example, and Mattress Firm is probably not the best example to use here because their product set stays about the same throughout their different locations. But let's say you had a gardening store and you had all of your annuals at one location and all of your perennials at another. Also probably a bad example, but you get the idea. If I was near the perennial store, I might see that organically, but I would never see the other location if it were 6 miles away. So what Mattress Firm has done here, not only just usurping the top position, but it's even able to show me a location that's 6.5 miles away in Arvada, and it's just, takes up more of my attention, especially on a mobile device where I'm less willing to scroll down. And just another stat to back that up, so 88% of searches for local businesses on a mobile device either call or visit the business within 24 hours, which this and I mentioned, and we will weave it throughout, you know, we are in the time of COVID. It is quite possible this isn't ending soon. So let's not ignore that. And I think what's compelling here is now more than ever, people have questions about the state of your business and how they can interact with you. And so being prominent there and taking measures to answer their questions in search will go a really long way.
And over on the social side of things, why you should consider doing paid social for your business. One, social is a pay-to-play space. So, you know, just by spending $1 per day, your post can get in front of 4,000 people, which is super cheap to get that many eyeballs on a post. And to put some context around that, you have about a 1 to 2% chance of getting a organic unpaid post into somebody's feed. So statistically, you have a better chance of getting into Harvard than you do of your post being seen by your fans. The chances of getting into Harvard is 5.2%, just for some more math there. It's also super cheap. You can see here the CPMs broken down by channel, with Google Ads being almost $3, and then LinkedIn and Facebook being way under that, and then Pinterest coming in still under at $2. So it's just a cheap and effective way to get your brand in front of new people. Skipped ahead. So when should you run ads for your business? And the first thing that you want to consider is, are these three things. So do you have a clear objective? So that's promoting or, promoting an initiative, whether it's a sale, maybe you have a new product, things like that. You have a clear goal. So whether that's driving sales or just creating more brand awareness. And then you are setting measurements for success. So return on ad spend, cost per new customer, store visits, things like that. And then a bit of a real world example. Maggie and I worked on a client a couple years ago who, when we were doing the initial kickoff call and we said, what are your goals for this? She said, I want to retire in 5 years, which, great goal, but how can we turn that kind of broad goal into actionable things? Like what little goals can we set to reach that big goal? So if you want to retire in 5 years, what steps do we need to take to get there? So do you need to sell 5 houses? Oh, she was a real estate agent too, by the way. That's why this is in real estate terms here. You need to sell 5 houses in a year to hit your goal. How do you sell 5 houses in a year? You need to show 100 houses in a year to sell the 5. To show the 100 houses, you need to talk to 200 people on the phone per year to show those houses. So really the goal is you need 200 qualified leads. So taking, you can have these big goals, like I want more sales, and then you can narrow it down to how you can reach that bigger overarching goal. So in social, I touched on it before, but when I said pay to play space, you should be running ads. You should be running something. So here's a bit of a decision tree-esque comparison table to help you decide whether or not it's a promoted post or an ad. And there is a difference. Promoted posts, I like to think of them as a great intro into the world of Facebook advertising. easy thing to do. You know, you're typically setting either your goals are more engagement on that post or clicks to your site. And you can set a broad audience with limited budget. With actual, you know, Facebook ads, you have much more robust options in what you can do. You can set specific placements. So whether that is just in the newsfeed, in a Facebook story, in the Facebook marketplace, you can pick and choose where you want your ads to show, where you don't have that option with promoted posts. And you can also set more specific goals with Facebook ads. So you can set, you know, a conversion goal. So somebody purchasing something from your site, or a lead goal, somebody filling out a contact form, where you don't have that option with promoted posts. So promoted posts are great, especially for if you have a blog and you want more people to visit your blog, great for a promoted post. If you have an announcement, say your COVID plan as a business, great place, you know, do a post on Facebook and promote it. That way the people who are coming to your business kind of know and understand what to expect when they get there, and that you are in fact open during COVID. So that's just a bit on the social side.
And here's a decision tree I like to use on the paid search side. So the reason why this differs slightly from what Karen just presented is, I don't think you should always run a paid search campaign, or to be more specific, you don't necessarily have to run paid search ads for every part of your business. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. So this decision tree is just, I think, a good practice before you get started, because one thing to consider in all of this is just the time investment that it takes to build something. So that's something that I like to have a good gauge on before I get started, is what's my potential for success even before I get to work. So first step, and this is some of these are really cut and dry, some are less so, but do you have relevant content on your site? Pretty obvious, sort of shocking how this doesn't always get answered as a yes, but that's the first place to start. Think of it from a user standpoint. When you're on Google and you're searching for something, how many times have you got to a site, didn't find what you want, bounce right back to Google, keep searching? If you're paying for that click, the stakes are higher. So that's rule number one, have relevant content on your site. Then, is the topic relevant to your key audience? And I'm gonna go through a couple examples in a second that I think will help explain these. So that's the next step. Is it something that people are searching for, yes or no? There's research you can do before you get started to answer that. And then, is there parity between your keywords, ad copy, and landing pages? This is something that if you're hands-on in your account, you have complete control over. So that's the good news. This is an easy answer, yes. It's more of just a checkbox. So a couple examples here. So I'm gonna create a scenario where I'm a restaurant in Denver, a high-end restaurant. My main goal is to fill my patio space with diners or to do online ordering. And it's a Mediterranean restaurant. So someone's searching for desserts Denver. So I have desserts, I've got a dessert menu, but that's not really my key audience, right? I mean, perhaps I might catch a few people who think, oh, I want a dessert right now and I want to go into a Mediterranean restaurant and eat a dessert there. Like, sure, it can happen. It certainly does. I don't think you're gonna find good return on that. And when you're paying, again, the stakes are a little bit higher. So that would be an example where I would say desserts Denver isn't really your key audience, so maybe don't run it. And, oh, a little background noise, sorry about that. Then another example is, let's say you're a furniture mattress retailer Most of your products are online, but none of your mattresses are online, which is actually pretty common if you've worked with mattresses. Getting that data and selling online is just, it's not that easy, surprisingly. So let's say that someone's searching for online mattresses and you think, well, I have mattresses. I'm not selling them online, but I still think it's relevant. I would argue that doesn't fit this. So make a push, get those mattresses able to sell online, or perhaps just go off of keywords like mattresses near me and have ad copy that designates that you have to come into the store to buy a mattress. So there are a lot of different examples here, but I like to run through this. Even, you know, I've been doing this for 10 years. I sometimes go back to this because it just grounds me when I'm deciding whether to move forward. So this is a big question, and we put a money or a dollar amount to it, but it's sort of just a placeholder. So if I had $10,000 to spend, how would you recommend I spend it? The greater question is, we as digital marketers, we have to make a decision on where we're going to get the best return. And a lot of times that answer isn't straightforward. And so what Karen and I are going to do in the next couple of slides is just give you tools and information that you can use to customize this answer to your particular business. So the next slide, we're calling this a channel fit guide. So what this is a little summary of the places where we as an agency put most of our paid media dollars. So I have a handful of honorable mentions. This is there are so many places you can run ads now, and everything here that is designated we think is a good idea sometimes. So the reason why we're focusing on these sort of 6 platforms up here is just because really market share and relatability to most of our clients. So there are occasionally times when these make total sense and we would 100% recommend them, but what my goal here is to have you leave with as much actionable information as you can. And so that's why we wanted to start with these big 6. So just to kick off, quick summary, some of this will be old, but just all in one place, personally, is something I enjoy. So Google search, it's good for all businesses. I mean, I really can't think of an industry I wouldn't recommend Google search for. There are some exceptions, right? If you sell firearms or certain banned substances, you can't run on Google, but most businesses are 100% fine. I think it's really great for gaining competitive advantage. So we went through some stats before. People are on Google, your competitors are on Google too. This is a really, I would call this an entry product for most businesses. Even if you have a small budget, a lot of people are on Google search. And also just for driving specific results, I'm a really literal type A person. So I really love that I know exactly what somebody's searching for. I can match that search with a perfect ad and I can drive them to a perfect page to drive exactly the result that I want. So it's a nice, tidy product. Moving on, and pay attention to some of these icons because we're going to use them on the next couple slides. So this Google is Google search. This Google is Google Display Network. So that's Google Display Network is ad placement, mostly display ads across Google's vast network. So again, this can fit all business types. I think it's really good for driving awareness, scaling and driving traffic, and also re-engaging with your audience, so remarketing ads. And then Karen, do you want to walk us through the next couple?
Sure. So I bucketed Facebook and Instagram together here because they're both controlled and owned by Facebook, and they have the exact same like targeting and capabilities. So that's why they're a 2-for-1 here in this square. So They are best for all business types. You're going to have most of your luck with B2B or B2C here. B2B, you can have some success, but B2C is going to be where it's best. It's also great for driving awareness, like I said, with things like promoted posts and just kind of getting in front of people who might be interested in your company and what your company has to offer. Also great for driving traffic to your site. It's awesome for re-engaging past customers that maybe haven't visited you in a while, haven't purchased. If you have an email list, you can retarget them in Facebook and Instagram, and also remarketing. So maybe people have visited your site before, maybe they added to a cart, things like that. They've engaged with you in some way. They've liked a post that you put out. You can retarget them here as well. LinkedIn, that's going to be best for your B2B. It has awesome targeting for specific like job titles and things along those lines. So you can target by job title, by job seniority, specific companies, specific verticals. So that's why it's really great for B2B space, because you can target the decision makers who work for the exact industry that you're going for. So that's a great spot for you there if that's your business. Pinterest, this is going to be great for the highly visual brands. I like to think of Pinterest as where Google search meets Instagram. So you can target by keywords and things along those lines in Pinterest, but you need to have some great visuals. Also, this is for the B2C space and kind of e-commerce. Particularly if you are a company that sells things like apparel, home decor, gardening, any food-based things. That's going to be a great spot for you there. And then Yelp, that's going to be best for your brick and mortar sites and brick and mortar businesses driving foot traffic into the store. And if you mostly really care about people getting directions to your locations or giving you a phone call.
All right, and so that was a, overview of what these channels are good for, but something that I think is really important to telling that story and making decisions is understanding scale and sort of network user popularity. Because let's say you think, okay, well, I have a highly visual brand, I'm B2C, I sell online, I'm going to put 100% of my budget into Pinterest. Well, something to weigh with that decision is just that, where are all your potential customers? So Pinterest has a much smaller share compared to some of the other networks. I think that this is just for context. If you have a small budget and a really particular goal and you think Pinterest matches it, I think you should test that. But it is, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but testing and weighing and optimizing and doing so across platforms is super important. So this data represents active users worldwide. I'm assuming a similar trend in the US if that's where you're marketing, at least relatively. Something that I also wanted to share that doesn't quite fit, because Google doesn't measure their searchers as users, because you don't necessarily have to be a user to search on Google, but Google search has 92% of the search network market share. So that's 92% compared to Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, which DuckDuckGo has been making really big strides year over year, but is still under 2% of market share. So Google is where most people are doing their searching. And also in this number, I put Dr. Evil because I feel like he probably couldn't even understand the scale of 5.8 billion searches per day. But it's mega. And I think we all know that as just through our regular lives, how we use Google, but it's important. People are there, your competitors are there. Google's important.
Okay, so kind of continuing down the decision guide here, the next couple slides are going to be really showing what the different platforms are best at. So here we have our two different goals. We want to drive awareness, or we want to drive a specific result. So awareness, the display network, great. Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, driving specific results. LinkedIn is going to be great for that. Yelp, Google search, and also Facebook and Instagram. Those channels are great for doing both things, since you can set either really broad like engagement or just send traffic, or a specific like I want leads, things like that. So what type of goals do you have? Do you have, are your goals adventurous? Do you have the time and the budget to kind of play around and test out different things? These channels are going to be great for that. Do you have more strict goals and guidelines that you need to kind of stick within? That's where these channels here, Yelp, LinkedIn, Google search, Facebook, Instagram, that's going to be where you should go there. Where is your audience? Do you have a more general audience with lots of different cohorts? Or do you know exactly who you're going after and you only want to reach them? Here's kind of the channels you should be looking into. What do you care most about? Do you care most about getting foot traffic into your store, or are your goals, online based? That should factor into which channels you decide to place your advertising dollars in as well. And also, which vertical are you in? Are you in the B2C space? Are you B2B? Very different worlds. So choosing wisely there is going to be essential as well. Then are you e-com or not e-com? Are you driving people into a store to buy on location? You're going to want to go with Yelp and the various Google products and LinkedIn. E-com, you can play around, especially more on social media, is where e-com is the good choice there. And Google search as well, because Google search is great for everything. And last bit of advice in the decision-making process is test. Don't be afraid to test. It takes, playing around with different beakers and turning knobs and turning things off and on to find your sweet spot. So don't be afraid to get out there and test some different things out, and just check your results quickly and often. That way you can shift in case things aren't necessarily going to plan.
So this is a nice segue, right? We just told you to test and make sure that you're checking your results and you're shifting budget based on results. So this question is a nice answer to that. So how do I know if what I'm doing is working? So first off, and I'll tie you back to that example we used early on. So the client of ours who said, my goal is to retire in 5 years. So that would be, she has a map, she has a place she wants to get to, but she doesn't have a compass to show her the way there. And so this is just a metaphor that I like to think about when I'm approaching how I'm designating how things are doing with my campaigns is I've got a big picture goal. Let's just say it's as simple as I want to drive sales, but how are we doing that? How are we making sure that what we're doing is adding up to something forceful or something that's making a difference? So the next slide, just track everything. So I'll expand into that, but Karen and I, and just 2 Octobers in general, we approach everything with an analytically first mindset. So I don't even launch things until things are perfectly tied up with a ribbon on the analytics side. I just don't think it's worth it. So the next slide, I'm really hoping we have some Schitt's Creek fans out there today. So these are what I mean by meaningful KPIs. These are the types of things that you should track, you can track, and David's mood is a really good designation of how we feel about these different KPIs, because not all KPIs are equal. So the ones on the left, these we feel really good about. So store visits, phone calls, directions, sales, offer redemptions. These are hard KPIs. You know, you can put real business value against them. That said, some of them are pie in the sky. So, and I'll get into this on the next couple slides, but store visits, most businesses on Google aren't even eligible for Google store visits. So this is where, and David has some skepticism with this, but this is where store visit proxies come in. I'll get into that a little bit more, what I mean by store visit proxies, but they're substitutes, right? Things that we generally look on with some skepticism when you're calling them key performance indicators are clicks or sessions, click-through rate, or impressions, because I could spend $100 on a display campaign that's not touching my target audience, that drives no results, but drives mega impressions, mega sessions, and then people get to your site and do nothing. So it's something we keep an eye on because it's a health measure, but it's not something we optimize towards. So the next slide, and this just goes into more detail on what I'm calling our favorite KPIs. So I mentioned store visits. So store visits, and this is relevant to both Google and Facebook, both platforms have a way of measuring a store visit. So what it does is it takes information shared by people who have chosen to either turn on their location services or in some cases, and this is more of a Facebook thing, these platforms can use satellite imagery and mapping data from third parties that show location boundaries of your stores. And they do track when some people go from clicking on your ad to visiting your store. So something to keep in mind though, both Facebook and Google model these numbers. So they're estimates at times. So it's usually a combination of real measured data and then extrapolation. So it's not perfect. It's far from perfect, and also it's all, you know, a little bit black boxy. But we do always enable it when we can, because it is far better than most proxies. So a couple things with Google. So I mentioned some clients just aren't eligible for it. The biggest barrier there is that you have to have thousands and thousands of ad clicks. They don't actually publish that number. So they don't say you must have 9,000 clicks per month. They don't publish it, but it is in the thousands, and you usually have to have some ad history before you can get it enabled. You also have to have all of your stores in GMB, and 90% of them have to be verified. So there are a couple hurdles. They're not impossible, but it's usually not a quick process. On the Facebook end though, it's far easier. There are no real barriers. The only caveat I'll put to that is that the more population and the biggest your target, the more accurate and the more comprehensive your store visit data will be. So it's not a great option for a teeny campaign. I definitely trust it more with a larger sample set of data. So a couple other online to offline tracking tactics. So I mentioned store visit proxies. These aren't all bad, and some are better than others, and some are unique to certain business types. So what I mean by this is that could be a location page view. So let's say you don't sell any of your products online, you don't have store visits enabled, but you do know a good indicator of somebody then visiting your store is if they go let's say you have 3 branches, right? One in Denver, one in Colorado Springs, and one in Boulder. So if someone visits your Boulder page, that's a good indication that they might come visit you in Boulder. Also, clicks on get directions buttons, that's either on site or even in your location extension in your ad. It's a good designate or indicator that somebody's about to visit you. And also some sites, so let's say you retail elsewhere and you have a store locator page. So people who search to find the product at a retailer near me or something like that. That's something that you can measure and optimize towards too. And then on the Facebook side, and I'll let Karen speak to this, coupons are another great way to track online to offline activity.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to give a little more detail.
So there, Facebook does have options to, and this is where kind of that honorable mentions down at the bottom comes in. You can integrate your Facebook Ads Manager with your POS system, and you can run ads that would generate like a QR code, which can scan into your register. So that way you can have that kind of one-to-one, this ad led to this sale. There's also just different offers that you can use in Facebook. They have the whole offers function where people can, you can say, we're running this promo, and people can save it for later or go ahead and use it. So Facebook has a bunch of different options and capabilities when it comes to offers and couponing that translate both to an in-store on-site conversion or a e-commerce conversion as well.
And so another thing that we track a lot is our phone calls. So that's easy to do from an ad. We also do dynamic call tracking almost all the time for our clients on site. So with that, our recommended tool is CallRail. There are a lot of tools out there that do something similar, but the basic concept is that a user clicks on your ad, the tool, so CallRail in this example, identifies that keyword ad person. When they get to your site, CallRail swaps in a tracking number. That tracking number is tied to everything I just mentioned. So keyword, ad, user, and when somebody calls you, it then forwards to your main phone number. So what that lets you do is know what ads are driving phone calls. It even builds in things like call tracking or audio recording, so you can do a little bit more diagnosis on the quality of your leads too. But it's a really powerful tool, and at this point, I think it's just table stakes that you should be doing something like this, especially if your main goal isn't just to sell products online. So the last one is online revenue. This one's pretty straightforward, but something we like to do to enhance just online revenue tracking is making sure that everything is set up really well in Google Analytics. And when I say really well, there's accurate is one side of it, and also comprehensive. So enhanced e-commerce tracking is something we like to set up. It gives you a lot more insight into how people are navigating through your cart, what products they're buying, how they're getting to those products. So if you have the resources, or if you are on a platform like Shopify, it's super easy, plug and play. I definitely recommend it. And then also, this is a question I get a lot. So let's say your main source of truth is Google Analytics when it comes to your online revenue. When should you be setting it up in individual platforms too? So if I've set up in Google Analytics, do I have to set it up in Facebook? The answer is yes, definitely. So the reason being is that then you can, if you set it up in Facebook as well, even though it's mirroring, you get a lot more Facebook oriented data like view through tracking. So somebody saw an impression, they didn't necessarily like your ad or even engage with it or click on it, but you know that it influenced that eventual purchase if you have revenue tracking set up in Facebook. In Google, I feel a little less strongly about it because I only really think it's important to set it up with the Google Ads pixel if you're running display. If you're running search, I think it's easier to just integrate, just sync Google Analytics and Google Ads together, because there's no view through tracking. So there are not a ton of benefits there, but anyway, you can do it. It won't harm anything to set it up in all platforms, but 100% set it up in Facebook and a lot of other social platforms too. And then the last thing Facebook offers, Karen, I'll let you wrap this up.
Yeah, so I touched on it a minute ago, but the Facebook offers is another kind of great way to up your online revenue. Everybody loves a promo, everybody loves a discount. So utilizing the Facebook offers feature is great, because like I said, people can like save it, so then they'll come back and purchase. One important thing to note if you do a Facebook offer is that once you build the ad and the offer, you can't go back and edit it. So like, can't change the copy, can't change the run dates, can't change the URL. You would have to build from scratch. So that's just one heads up if you decide to do a Facebook offer, is to triple check everything before hitting save.
And the last thing, honorable mention, which it's more than an honorable mention, but POS integrations. We're running a little behind, so I want to breeze through this. But mental note, if this interests you, let's talk about it in office hours, because I love this sort of thing, and there's really no out-of-the-box solution. So me trying to summarize it here would probably be sort of worthless anyway. So make mental note. And with that, that brings us into our intermission. So here, this is what you might think intermission is. I definitely won't fault you if you want to go grab a snack. But what we're actually hoping this intermission is a time for you to look back on what we just covered and send us any of your questions. So anything, we'll give it a couple minutes. We're also around at the end of this if you'd rather hold it till then. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions, or chat them to us. And if this GIF starts to drive you crazy, go to the next slide.
We can go back to the dancing popcorn if that is better.
Also, I mean, we could, if we take a second, and you can do this in Zoom with the reactions button, but if we could get a quick thumbs up or thumbs down on if this content is hitting what you expected, or if it's new or informative. It's not too late for us to pivot.
Never too late. Oh, we've got one.
All right. Yeah, I think this is a good question for you, Karen.
This is definitely a me question. So have you tried store visits in Facebook? We tried to do it for a client and could never get the location set up correctly. And then it said we were in beta mode. I have done store visits. So what you need to do to get the location set up correctly is it's called a, ooh, I'm blanking on the name, but I think it's called a store set or a location set, which you would essentially go in and claim your address for that location. Also, you can set up the address in the Facebook page too. The physical address, you can populate that into different get directions type of ads as well. I'm curious about the beta mode. When did you try this?
I'm just going to jump off mute if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
We really tried it like the whole last year, and it seemed like it was working for a few months, and then we weren't getting any conversions on it. And so I tried to work with Facebook to set up, to maybe I had the location set up incorrectly, but and it's kind of tricky because it's a chain, so it's a hardware store chain, and they all have their own pages. And so Facebook kept telling me that we needed to set them up like in almost like they needed to be in one location set, but then we needed to target them separately. So it was just kind of a mess. And then shortly before the coronavirus hit, we got like the notification that store visits were in beta mode, and maybe that's why it wasn't working. And then when coronavirus hit, we couldn't do it anymore.
That makes sense why you would stop store visits.
Yeah.
So that is very strange because, well, the different locations, do you know if the different location pages, do you know if they're like a child page to the main page? So if the main page is Ace Hardware, and then you can set up child pages under it that are like Ace Hardware Denver, Ace Hardware Fort Collins, Ace Hardware, wherever. Then you should be able to advertise from those child pages. I've done it, so it should be.
Are the location pages different than like their Facebook pages?
Nope, they're the same. So
Okay.
Each location would have its own Facebook page when you set up those child pages, but also you don't have to, you could advertise from the main page as well. So say you have a physical location that doesn't have a Facebook page, and you want to drive traffic to that location, you can still advertise from the main page. And then what I use is the get directions call to action, and then you can manually put in the address for that location.
Yeah. Okay.
A workaround, if the store visits, when you're building the campaign and where you can select conversions,
Store visit,
whichever.
Yeah.
If you do awareness, I believe a workaround you might be able to try. If you do awareness, you can still use the get directions call to action with the address. So that might be like a workaround to possibly try. But
I'll have to look into that.
It may not integrate with the POS system like perfectly, but you'll still be able to see how many people clicked to get to the map and things like that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cool, and we got one more question. So can you clarify if we need X number of store chains to get store visit data, or do we need X number of footfalls before we get the store visit data? So that's a good question. Google publishes that you need to have multiple stores to qualify for store visits in Google search. I have successfully gotten a single store account running. So I would say if you have time, it's worth trying. Even if you have a single store, I have seen success, although it does go against the way Google publishes it. So it's a little black boxy. Definitely multiple stores should be eligible. And no, there's nothing published about the number of footfalls needed. The real volume measure is on the ad side. So click volume is that threshold. All right, well, let's get moving. There will be plenty of time for more questions at the end. So store them up, send them over, whatever you prefer. The next question is, this is maybe my favorite topic that we'll cover today because it's the most fun. So how do I make my campaigns more personalized? So when I first started, there were all these people. I'd go to workshops and someone would say, well, back in my day when I started, and so here I am, I've become it. So Karen, if you flip to the next slide, in the olden days, in paid search, and this wasn't even that long ago. The way that it works is a user searches, an auction occurs, the query maps to the keyword that you have designated, and then the user sees an ad, chooses wisely. Everybody lives happily ever after. So now, and if you flip to the next slide, Karen, there are just so many more variables. So these are just a few examples, but not only is the targeting available by desktop, mobile, tablet, that's standard by this point. Now you know if a searcher, and so this is old news for Facebook, right? Or for Facebook ads, but for Google ads, this is still pretty exciting. So you can tell if someone is job hunting, if they're low household income, if they're female, if they're a parent of a teen, if they're a high school graduate, or you could see if they're a homeowner, a foodie, or if maybe they're a renter instead, they're married, they live in Arizona, they're looking to take a trip to Florida, they've added to cart on your site, but they haven't converted. So they're just lots and lots of different ways you can see paid search data, but also target people on the Google search network. So that's a really broad way to say there are a lot of creative things you can do in paid search. Here's a dilemma that I like to use as an example when I get really creative with my targeting. So with paid search audience targeting, you can either set it as observation, where it overlays on top of all your data, and it essentially doesn't do anything but serve as a way for you to, okay, boost my bids 10% if someone's married. You know, I have a higher track record of selling to people who are married. So if you have it in observation state, that's how you can use it. Here's another example of where you can use it to do things that you didn't used to be able to do. So the dilemma here is you sell furniture, you have a killer Black Friday deal, but your pockets aren't as deep as Wayfair's because, I mean, whose are? So here's a solution. The keyword Black Friday furniture would be insane. It'd be like touching a hot iron if you just went out and bid on it on Black Friday. That said, what you could do is you could bid on that keyword. Your ad could tell all about your unbelievable Black Friday deal, and then you can narrow your targeting so that you're only eligible to serve an ad when someone who's a past customer, is a homeowner, and is within 5 miles of your store searches for it. So it's a way, like the way that we used to do it is we used to build out exact match keywords. Now we can get a lot more creative with how we narrow down and still are eligible for things like this, Black Friday furniture, which is just upper funnel, but do it in a way that actually drives revenue and doesn't, you know, put you head to head with Wayfair. So I'm actually going to have to take over sharing in a second, Karen, but give me 1 sec. I'm just going to get this all ready. So this GIF is, I don't know if it's maybe not as obvious to others. This is something that my husband and I say a lot. It's a quote from Game of Thrones, but when somebody states something super obvious, the other one goes, "It is known." So here are a couple "it is known" types of bullets. So keyword and ad copy parity is super important. It is known. The more specific your ad copy, the better your click-through rate. It is known. More niche keywords are likely cheaper and have higher quality searches. It is known. So this isn't, if you have all the time in the world, you can just build and build and build ad group segmentation, keywords, ads. What I'm going to demo really quickly is how we've done this for clients who say have 50 locations. So how do you have keyword copy parity, really specific ad copy, and niche keywords when you have 50 different locations, and some of those locations have really specific needs. So let me share my screen really quickly.
Do I need to stop share, or can you just?
No, I think you're good. Okay. So And are you following along, Karen?
Yep.
All right. So what this is, and one of our brilliant co-founders, Nico Brooks, built this tool for us, and I just wanted to demo how it works to solve the problem that I just mentioned. So this is an example where, let's say you have 3 different orchards, right? In Colorado, you have an orchard in Penrose, Bennett, and Colorado Springs. The problem is all of your orchards have different offerings. So Penrose just is an apple orchard, and it's just, actually I've duplicated this, just has Cortland apples, and their hours are 11 to 3. So this will come back in later. Bennett is also just an apple orchard. They only have McIntosh apples. But Colorado Springs, you've got apples, pears, cherry orchards, different kinds of apples. So anyway, this is a simple or a long-winded way of saying different businesses and multi-location businesses have complexities. So these are some of those complexities. What this tool does is it takes these parameters, and let me move this up. This is, and then I've written an ad copy that is templatized, right? So my campaign has town. So everything with exclamation points, these are parameters. My ad group, my headline, all of these, this is just one single ad. And then when I use this tool to generate my ads, it expands it out. So it took all of these parameters for Penrose, and it built an ad with all of those specifications. So now, pick your own apples. I only have an apple orchard in Penrose. I have a location-specific headline, and then I mention Cortland apples. And then I even pushed in the hours that they're open here. So those differ by location. And then what's also nice, this just flagged to me that Colorado Springs is over 30 characters. So let's just change it to the Springs. And then I can take this and I can just upload it into Google Ads Editor. And then similarly, the keywords, this is where, I mean, it's really powerful for ads too, but this just excites me when I can go from 6 to, and let me generate the keyword list. Okay, I just went from 6 to 30 with the click of a button, and these are all really specific keywords, right? So Bennett, apple orchard, Bennett, McIntosh, apple orchard, Bennett, that's a city, so Bennett orchard, Bennett apple farm, so on and so forth. And then Colorado Springs is when it gets super complex, right? Apples, pears, cherries. We've got variations for all of those. So yeah, there are ways, I mean, there are ways that you can scale and build tools and be super personalized and specific, even when you're working with scale. All right, back to you, Karen.
Let me get it up here. Share screen. Okay, 1 second. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So for the paid social side of this personalization, you're going to want to break up your audience into 2 main buckets. You can have many buckets under these buckets, but 2 main buckets. Your prospecting and your remarketing. So prospecting, those are the brand new people. They've never interacted with your brand before in any way. They may have never heard from you. Brand new. So the best way to find these people, lookalike audiences based off of email lists of past customers, past leads, form fills, basically any email list that you have can become a you can build a lookalike audience off of them. Facebook has a audience insights feature. You do have to have a pretty substantial following on Facebook to be able to utilize this, but if you do, it's great. It can tell you people who like your Facebook page also like honey baked ham and blue diamond almonds and, you know, different things like that. So it's a great tool if you're trying to find new audiences. If you've kind of been playing around with the ads for a bit and you're like, let me find some new audiences to test. That feature is awesome. Also, building out customer personas. You know, kind of like Maggie was saying, with the search stuff, you can find out, you know, who your customers are and build personas around those. So are they parents who live in Boulder and drive a Subaru and shop at Whole Foods? And that will help you kind of in the next slide where I talk about the user journey. It helps identify any possible pain points that that customer might have, so that when you go and target that audience, you can speak directly to them and their needs and how you can fulfill them. Also, competitor targeting. As long as the brand is big enough, Facebook will deem it worthy of targeting. So say you run a small supplement store. You might not be able to compete with other small supplement stores, but you could compete against GNC and Vitamin Cottage and different brands like that. The copy here for these people should be a bit more like awareness-based and revolve kind of around a value proposition, especially if your business is selling something that is more of a considered purchase. If you kind of have a low-hanging fruit sort of, you know, oh, it's like we're selling t-shirts for $5. You don't need to be as easy on the sales message, because it is an easier conversion to get if you're, you know, selling smaller ticket items. Remarketing, these are going to be people who know about you already. And like I said before, Facebook and Instagram are just chef's kiss for remarketing. These are people who have visited your site before. Maybe they created an account on your site, so you have their email address, but they haven't purchased anything yet. They've engaged with you on Facebook or Instagram. They went to your site, put something in your cart, abandoned it. Maybe a past customer that hasn't purchased in a while. If you set up your tracking correctly, which we talked about before, you can hit all of these people. And you can also be a bit more heavy-handed with your sales message, because they already know about you, especially if they've already put something in their cart. Definitely be more sales-driven there, because they're like one step away from a purchase. So when you're actually writing the ad copy, you want to be Bill Murray. So you want to speak to where the customer is on their journey. What we like to do when writing ad copy is, you know, figuring out what problem does your product solve. And a great way to do that is to apply what's called the jobs to be done framework, which is when I blank, help me blank so I can blank. An example of this is, say, back to the supplements, say you're selling a protein powder. You can say, when I finish my workout, help me recover quickly so I can work out tomorrow and not be sore. And just creating that framework is a great way to kind of wrap your brain around and get your gears turning when it comes to writing the ad copy. And like we said before, test things. I like to do A/B tests, maybe even an ABC test if I'm feeling a little crazy. So don't be afraid to test. You can always turn things off if things aren't performing. So yeah, that's writing the ad copy. And another thing to keep in mind is don't be afraid to get a little creepy. So we've all had that situation where we've looked at something on a site, maybe even talked about something, which that's a whole other workshop, but and that item appears in your feed. By setting up the different tracking, you can integrate those ads into your marketing mix. You can also set different placements, like I kind of touched on before. Facebook has over 20 different placement options between Facebook and Instagram. So the options are vast. You can show up in apps, you can show up in articles. I mentioned the displaying, the exact products people viewed. And also you can show up in the Facebook marketplace. Now this is going to be great, especially for people who sell things like furniture, mattresses, because people are going to the marketplace it's Facebook's answer to Craigslist is what the Facebook marketplace is. So if you're selling goods, basically Facebook marketplace is going to be a great place for you to test out some ad placements. All right.
We've got 2 more questions. We'll try to get through them at a quick rate just to make sure we hold at least 30 minutes for office hours. But next question is, should I have a landing page or is my site okay? So I get this question a lot. So a landing page, just to define it, that's usually a one-time generated page that's maybe produced through an outside tool, isn't really part of your site. I mean, although you can patch it directly into your site, but it's sort of a standalone initiative. So we get this question a lot with Facebook and Google ads. So should I create a landing page? So there's some real pros and cons here. So pro, you have more control. So if you're, and also people without super technical skills can build it. So like, for example, if I'm building a landing page, which is totally within my skill set now, I have complete control over it. So I can put the form right where I want it, or I can put the phone number right where I want it. The copy is all right there at my fingertips. The linking, everything is within my control. I can do it quickly too. I'm the only bottleneck to getting it done. So I can get to market really quickly. Also, we see that landing pages often have really good conversion rate, right? So if you're sending and this is a great example because it's what we're doing right now, if you're trying to get people to sign up for your webinar and you drive somebody to your landing page that all they can do is sign up for your webinar, your conversion rate is probably going to be higher than if you land them on a home page and then they have to navigate to training and then they have to navigate to the right training and then they have to navigate to the forum. So there are a lot of pros. There are also a lot of cons. So there's really little technical SEO benefit. I originally said no to technical SEO benefit. I think you might argue that you can learn a little about UX, which then ties into technical SEO. So I changed it to little, but if you're building standoff landing pages, they're really for a single purpose, which is paid media. You also have to make a lot of assumptions of what somebody wants. So in my webinar example, I'm assuming all you want to do when you engage with 2 Octobers is sign up for a webinar, if I have a landing page that forces you down that funnel. And also most landing pages stifle user navigation. Like most of the time you don't obviously link out elsewhere because you really want one particular goal. So again, you have to make a lot of assumptions, and unless you're really certain what that user path should look like, I'd put it squarely in the cons column. So that said, I'm not totally negative on landing pages. So on the next slide, I've got a couple reasons why I think there's a time and place for them. So if you don't have dev resources, if it's a short-term initiative, so if, I'm only running one webinar, it's only on one topic, and I only am promoting it for 2 weeks, and that's it, maybe it's not a bad idea. Also, if I have a single path goal, like all I do is do webinars, and maybe that's okay. I really think of this as a Band-Aid situation a lot of times. I do like the idea of building landing pages to test something with the goal of integrating it into your site later. I think that's a pretty good strategy, and especially if it's a major change, I think it's a good one. And then the next slide is just a couple tips on landing pages. So our favorite tool is Unbounced. VWO is great too. We mostly just use Unbounced. And Google Optimize won't help you build landing pages, but it's just a tool I wanted to get on your radar if you're thinking about this, because Google Optimize is a way to A/B test pages. So take a page on your existing site, use Google Optimize and change small dimensions of it to test head-to-head. It could be a good alternative. The second thing is, before you build a landing page for a single Facebook campaign, ask yourself, could all my traffic benefit from this page? And most of the time the answer is yes. So what's somebody who's engaging with your business through a Facebook ad, how are they, without making a ton of assumptions, much different than somebody who's seeking you out from Google search or even an organic listing or from a referral site? So the answer is yes. I'd say take the time, build it into your site. And then also, if you are designing a landing page, here's my trinity. So build it for mobile. Even if you're obviously getting traffic on desktop too, it's just good to go with a mobile first approach. Put all of your most important content above the fold, and also make sure you have a call to action.
Okay, so I believe we're getting close to the end here. So you're going to be wondering what your competitors are doing. Are they doing some crazy stuff that you should be doing? How can you keep an eye on these people? One way to do that is with social, which is great. Why you should do it? You can analyze post copy. So here's the rub with social. There's no great tools to be able to see what your competitors are doing for advertising. There used to be a feature when you would go to a company Facebook page, you could see there would be a tab to be able to see what ads they're running, which was great, and then Facebook took it away. So but you do have options to analyze the organic side of things. So what they're posting, things like that. You can do, there's various social listening platforms out there. We use Sprout Social. I could list 25 different ones, Hootsuite, Agorapulse, all sorts of social listening platforms, and you can plug in the ads of your competitors and be able to see kind of how they're tracking. So what their engagement rate is, how many, are they getting new followers, things like that. Highly recommend that as well, using, keeping an eye on the organic side. Keep an eye on various promotions that your competition might be offering, and finding instances of trademark or policy violations. I've seen companies like straight up call out other companies in ads by saying like, we aren't, in a negative way. So saying like, we aren't those guys, we're better. So you don't want people doing that with your brand. So it's great to keep an eye out that way. And one thing I do with all of my clients, because maybe I'm a crazy person and I don't really care about my personal Facebook algorithm all that much, I put myself into competitors' remarketing funnels. So I'll visit their site so I can see their remarketing ads. From my personal Facebook and Instagram accounts, I'll engage with their content so that I can keep an eye out on what different remarketing ads they're running. Like I said, I might just be crazy, but that's a thing I do, and it works well.
So similarly, there are a lot of good reasons to watch your paid search competition. So first, just understanding the search results page and anticipating the impact on your cost per click. That's really good information to have as you get going and as you're analyzing your data. So let's say you're offering nanny services in Denver. that's quite different from if you're offering, for example, speech therapy associated with swallowing disorders in Denver. So you're going to have much different cost per clicks and search results pages. Also, you know, if you're offering nanny services during COVID, that's going to be quite different from if you're offering nanny services pre-COVID. So it's just something, it's a good thing to keep an eye on and check back in on. Competitor landscapes change a lot, and on paid search, they can really impact your auction and really impact your cost and your success. Also, it's a good way to generate a conquesting keyword set. So when I say that, I mean, for a lot of industries, it makes a lot of sense to bid on your competitors' brand names. So if you as a product or a business have any sort of research phase, so people might be considering multiple companies, or maybe they just need to do a lot of research before purchasing, I recommend it. If you have other companies that do things similar to you, I recommend it. It's worth testing, and I'm gonna go through a couple tools you can use to start help you generate that conquesting keyword set. Another thing I like to do is I like to analyze the ad copy of my clients' competitors. So the idea there is most of the time I want to know what it is so that I'm not saying something similar, because I want my ads to be more unique. That said, it's really helpful for me to know if literally all of my competitors have free shipping and my client doesn't. So some of this can help you make business decisions too, and aggregate what other people are doing so that you can either differentiate yourself or just understand table stakes. Also, improve or expand your existing keyword set. That's another great benefit of watching your competition. And then also, like Karen said, there are a lot of times where you can find instances of trademark infringement or policy violation from your competitors. So that's always nice to see and roll up to Google to flag those ads, just to make sure that the playing field is even. So the next slide is my aggregation of the tools, my favorite tools. So SEMrush and SpyFu, I'd put in similar brackets. They do similar things, so it gives you a really good understanding of overall landscape, traffic, scale associated with your competitors. I personally like SpyFu's, some of their visuals a little bit better for paid search. They both crawl competitor PPC ads. I usually find that SpyFu crawls more than SEMrush. That's anecdotal though. Google Ads Auction Insights, this is probably one of my favorite tools because it's the most accurate. That said, it's limiting because you can only see data for competitors who are running PPC, and you also have to be running a campaign in order to get this data. And then last but not least, good ads. I meant Google Ads. So Google Ads ad preview tool. This isn't really much of a tool other than in the Google Ads interface, it allows you to do cookie-less searches and also allows you to change your location. So this is what I often use if I'm just sort of cherry picking or looking for more local snapshots, but the data and insights are anecdotal at best. And so this is the end. So what's next and how can we help? And we will move right into office hours after this, but just to give you a little more information on 2 Octobers, we obviously do paid search and social, but we do a lot of other things too. So display, YouTube, Yelp, SEO, content marketing, email marketing. You know, we offer a full digital suite. That said, something that I think makes us pretty unique is we also offer training and coaching. This webinar series is sort of part of that, but we also do one-on-one coaching. We do that for people at in-house marketing teams. We also do it for agencies. So any of these services that we offer and do for our clients, we also offer training and coaching on. We have a bunch of other, what I call turnkey digital services. So these are more like one-off projects. So analytics insights and monitoring, Google Analytics audits, conversion rate optimization audits, things like that. And then last but not least, and I know there have been a couple agency folks on the phone, we do white labeling work too. So we just supplement other teams to do work for their clients. And so what's also next, these are upcoming workshops. So they range topics. So Google Grants, couple SEO topics coming up, content, Google Data Studio, and then we work with a lot of nonprofits. So we have a workshop on Giving Tuesday, a digital marketing playbook, and then 12 tips for the holidays, how to build a marketing roadmap, and then 5 ideas for SEO success in 2021. And we'll keep adding about 2 per month, probably due for a new round in another month or so. So please feel free to check back. And yeah, last but not least, here is our contact information. Please stay in touch. Send us a note, send us a question. You know, compliments are better than hate mail, but we won't be choosy.